All right, good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to this regular business meeting of the Stephenville City Council here on Tuesday, June the 3rd at 5:30, and I'll officially call to order this meeting. And welcome, everyone. We've got a great crowd here tonight, and I really appreciate that. It's a lot of good things we're going to talk about tonight, and a chance to celebrate as a community some great things that are going on. I want to welcome our new council members to their first regular business meeting. Got Boyd Wagner and Sherry Zachary, and down on the end there, Jerry Morton. So welcome tonight. I'd also like to just remind everybody that June is National Dairy Month, and that's a big deal in Stephenville and Erath County, and just thankful for all that are involved with that industry and the support from our community for that as well. We've got a full agenda tonight. We'll start off with I talked about celebrating. We've got on our agenda tonight, we've got general discussion that will allow folks to come up and speak just on any topic. And then we've got citizens' budget requests that we'll proceed to after that. But before we do that, I want to provide some special recognition to some folks. You know, every year we have what we do tonight, and that is to ask citizens if they have something that they would like to see in the budget. And last year was no different. There were some great ideas. In fact, some ideas that were return requests that had come forward. And one of the spectacular things that happened during the past year was that there were some local organizations that through the goodness of their heart and their love for our community, decided to go ahead and provide funding for several things within our community that have provided tremendous enhancements. And so tonight we want to thank those groups and allow them to come forward and get a certificate. So I'm going to move down to the end of the table real quick. And the great thing about these, I think you'll see as we go through them, is that they are things that are going to help the community at large. They kind of go beyond just a specific interest. And first of all, I want to ask the folks from Schreiber Foods to come forward. We got reps. Yeah, come on up here, Frank. And is Todd here?
I guess he wasn't able to make it.
Okay. All right, we got Frank here, and Schreiber Foods provided $15,000 to our city, donated it so that we could have a disc golf course down in the city park. And that's something that we had debated about. We approved it, and then they came forward with the funds to say, hey, we'll take care of that. And so tonight I just wanted to show for the council and the city our appreciation for y'all's contribution. $15,000 for the disc golf course at City Park for the benefit and enjoyment of the citizens of Stephenville. So let's give Schreiber Foods a oh, wait, come back up there. Okay, it's take, shake, smile. There we go. All right, the Optimist Club has a long history of taking care of one park in particular in Stephenville, so much so that today it's known as Optimist JC Park. And there is a sum of $12,000 that has been donated to provide a shade structure, an additional shade structure up at that park. So who's here from the Optimist Club tonight? I'd just like for y'all to come forward and let me present you with this certificate. And just really appreciate the organization's commitment to our community. So.
How about you in the middle?
Okay. Go, girl. Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. All right, and then there's been a combined effort, two different organizations that share the same name that have been involved in the main city park, and we've got the Stephenville Lions Club and the Stephenville Evening Lions that are each organization. Let me just have the Lions Club come up here first. Van, I know you're here this evening. Provided $10,000 for the baseball field renovation at City Park, and if y'all haven't been down there to see it, it really looks great. So thanks to, oh, okay, here we go. Thank y'all very much for a $10,000 contribution. And not to be outdone, the Stephenville Evening Lions Club matched that with an additional $10,000 donation. So if we get the Evening Lions to come up here. All right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's an iPad.
And then finally, we've got Erath County Veterans, Bradley Oglesby donating $5,000 for the new flagpole at Optimus J.C. Park. All right. Okay, in case you weren't counting, you just saw $52,000 worth of donations to the community from these organizations, and just what a great place this is to have that willingness to step up and provide what will be very great additions to our community. So thanks again for all of that. All right, we'll move on then to citizens' general discussion and see if there's anyone that would like to come forward and state anything before the council. Just checking to make sure these aren't. All right, thanks for coming tonight.
Thank y'all.
Okay, seeing none, then I'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the citizens' budget request, and see if anybody has anything that they would like to come forward and present to the council tonight. Okay. Well, I will encourage you to, if there is something that you know, somebody that's watching this evening or somebody that's still in attendance here, if you've got something that you are interested in, the council is going to meet next Tuesday, June 10th, to have our first budget meeting. And at that meeting, the council members are gonna bring kind of to the table the things that we've been hearing about or that we are concerned about maybe going into this budget cycle that'll last through the rest of the summer. So there's a lot of work to be done, but it'd be helpful for us if you could get anything that you're concerned about to us as soon as possible, so that we don't, so that we can consider it and actually understand what it is and how we might work with you to make it happen. So thank you for that and for your consideration with that matter. All right, the next item on the budget, on the agenda, I'm reading budget and looking at the agenda, is to consider approving the strategic plan for the Bosque River Trail Corridor Project. And I'll ask Mark to go ahead and proceed with the staff briefing, and I think we've got Drew Wells here this evening to present the plan for us. And I won't steal any of your thunder, Drew, but really appreciate you giving us, with the new council members that we had, kind of a pre-brief of this last week, and now for us to share it with the community. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, it's my privilege tonight to present to you for your consideration the adoption of the Bosque River Trail Plan, corridor plan. And this was an effort that the National Park Service, and we have a representative from the National Park Service here that met with us over the last year and a half to produce this plan, Ms. Catherine Nichols, and we'll recognize her in a little bit after I present the information for you tonight. And as we discussed last week in the committee meeting, what I'd like to do is discuss a little bit about the plan process, what we did, and then we'll go into detail about the plan. The city, and with Keep Stephenville Beautiful, we applied to the National Park Service for this plan in August of 2012. We were awarded a grant through the National Park Service in October of 2012. It was for a 1 year of technical assistance to actually produce this master plan. We then had an extension, and that was submitted in December of 2013 for an additional year to take us out through the end of this fiscal year. So we have a couple of more months left on our plan with the National Park Service. But after we got the plan in place, we had a steering committee that met in October of 2012. And of that steering committee, we had representatives from city, from Charleston State University, from the Independent School District, from the county, from Keep Stephenville Beautiful, from the Chamber of Commerce, from the Brazos River Authority, from the Stephenville Historical Museum, and a couple other organizations. So this was a very broad-based steering committee that initiated the process. And in that initial meeting, what we wanted to do was primarily two things. We wanted to discuss the plan process and then identify all the stakeholders that would take active participation in producing the plan. So from that meeting in October, there were two subcommittees that were formed that would be the working committees to produce the document that we have here tonight. That was the Community Participation Committee and then the Education Subcommittees that were formed. And then we identified the list of folks who were going to be very interested in key personnel that were going to meet and discuss the plan and create the plan. Before these two subcommittees met, one of the first things that we felt was just imperative for the success of this plan and for the plan to have any kind of validity was that we have community participation. So we commissioned an online survey to get some feedback from the community at large. We had 774 responses to that survey. For a community our size, that response from the National Park Service perspective, that response was pretty phenomenal. And it showed a very high interest in our trail project that was already in place and then in future projects. We also hosted a community town hall type meeting in April in April of 2013. We had approximately 50 to 75 citizens show up to that meeting, and that meeting was structured to receive input from them about what they would like to see go into the trail project and the corridor plan. Then we followed up with another meeting just a couple of months ago, March of 2014, and this meeting, town hall meeting, was an opportunity to provide feedback to the community as to what we had developed over the last year and a half, and we had about 70 folks attend that meeting at Graham Street Church of Christ Activity Center. So that's a little bit kind of in a real quick outlook or quick look at the plan process. And then now what I'd like to do is kind of discuss a little bit about the plan. The document that we reviewed last week, it's a 48 page document. The very first page is just a little bit about why the plan, and obviously what we wanted to do was take a look at the trail corridor within the city limits. It's approximately 8 miles, and we wanted to look at the recreational opportunities that we could have available there, some of the historical aspects of the trail and or the river and what it has meant to the city, and then some of the wildlife and other environmental aspects with the river. The plan is a 4-chapter document. The chapter 1, we discussed the project, the vision, and the mission of the plan. We identified the scope of the project, and in your document last week, we have maps that kind of detail that. We also listed a little bit about the history of the Bosque River Trail corridor. We discussed in detail the existing trail improvements that were completed in 2010, and then we also discussed a little bit about the impaired status of the river itself. And then I'm going to breeze through these slides to get to chapter 2, but here's a little bit of what that document looks like. And then in chapter 2, we discuss the goals and strategies of what we would like to accomplish. We identified 4 major topics here, first being health and recreation. We obviously just the walking trail itself, the hike and bike trail, to have that as a healthy resource for folks to use in the community. The next was the education component, and we identified 5 projects within this subsection of chapter 2. The first being the restoration of North Shepherd Street by the Historical Museum and the Oxford House. We have an area in there for interpretive signage and walks that the school district could participate in. Adopt a trail segment. We also have a website where we can discuss what's going on with the trail and communicate that to the community, and then we also have opportunities for Tarleton and the school district to participate in special presentations, a little bit about the history of the river through the city, and then also some of the historical figures that lived here in Erath County and in Stephenville with respect to the river. So again, I'm going to breeze through chapter 2, and here's very good. And then we hit chapter 3 where we talk about our recommended corridor improvements, and these are the things that we would like to see accomplished over time. And this will be an ongoing effort as long as until we can complete all the aspects of the improvements. And what we did on the first part of this, and chapter 3 is really kind of the meat of the plan. It's the longest chapter in the document, and we discuss how we could develop the trail along the river, how we would phase that, and we broke it down into 8 different phases to get the full 8 miles in length on the trail. We talked about the different amenities that would go into the trail, from playground structures to restrooms to park benches, trash cans, trash receptacles, those sorts of items. Then we also talked about the importance of providing connections to the existing neighborhoods as we develop the trail, to provide connections from those neighborhoods to the trail system, so people could access the trail very easily. And then we also discussed very briefly some additional recreational opportunities that could be introduced into this type of trail system. And an example of that might be seasonal paddling or kayaking or something of that sort. So let me breeze right through Chapter 3. Still breezing. Yeah, and then Chapter 4, we just kind of wrap it all up in a conclusion statement where we talk about just the chapters 1, 2, and 3, and just kind of wrap it up and summarize what we have discussed. And and then the last part of the plan, we've included Appendix A, B, and C, these appendices to discuss the strategic planning process, which is Appendix A, which was a little bit of an overview of what I just gave at the beginning of the presentation. The community input, the workshop, the development of the plan, the reviews, and the so forth. Appendix B was the survey that we had discussed. These are the questions that we asked, the responses that we received. So that is all that data. And then the last Appendix C is the acknowledgments. And here we listed all the folks that participated in the process, how they participated in the process, and then so, and this is pretty impressive because this again shows a broad-based support of the project and a representation from the community that I think we got a wide range of participation, and we've got a lot of different perspectives that went into this plan. So so that's very important, and it adds credibility to the document and to the vision, and hopefully the implementation of this plan. And at this time, I would like to introduce and recognize Meta Collier with Keep Stephenville Beautiful. She was really the driving force behind this whole process. And then we have Dr. Kathy Ray here, who was one of the chair folks on one of the subcommittees, and then Catherine Nichols, who is our National Park Service representative and who assisted us greatly. And I also wanted to take this time to thank Catherine and the National Park Service, because a lot of times when we go through a process like this, the most valuable part is just establishing those relationships with folks like her, and it's already paid off. And she endorsed another application that we submitted for a extension of the trail within the city park. And her endorsement of our application, I know, was well received. So that means a lot to us, and I wanted to thank her publicly for that, and for the friendships that we have created. So let me. Oh, and I see we have a few other members from Keep Stephenville Beautiful here, Janet Whiteley, and that's all I see. But let me, Catherine, if you and Meta would like to come up, please. Yep. And then we'll entertain any questions that you might have.
I think Catherine wants to address the council.
Yes.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. The National Park Service's program called Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance accepts applications from community-led conservation recreation projects. And when this application first came to us, I told Meta that it was one of the most well supported with letters from the community and the community organizations of any application we had ever seen. And I have to say that that played out through the rest of the process, that we had really good participation. We don't like to be the entity that comes to town and does things for a local community, so this was really gathering everybody else's ideas and just kind of putting them into something cohesive. And I'm proud of the product that we have, and I'm proud of the participation that we've had and all the community assistance that showed up when there were opportunities to do so. And so I wish you well with the implementation. Our phone number and email is still around, so we won't be strangers, and it's been fun to be up in this area of Texas. Our offices are in San Marcos, and we work the state of Texas through our project assistance, and this has just become one of my favorite homes away from home. So it's a very friendly community, and you should be proud of what you have here. And your Bosque River resource, you know, is a really special place. The trail is very lovely. It's as lovely as any I've seen all over the state as I've done my work. And I love the way people are embracing the opportunity for the river to be an improved asset that you will all be proud of, and you should be. So thank you for my time here. Appreciate it.
Well, I was gonna say something.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry. Let me give you the floor,
I
Miss
think
Miss
so.
Metacollier.
I just wanted to thank Catherine. Catherine has come one of my close friends. We have worked and talked, if not daily, by email or text messaging. And we were in a meeting this afternoon with Elisa, and our friendship has become so close. We can talk 2 hours on the phone, and then Catherine will call back and say, I didn't call you to talk about yada, yada, yada. I called you to talk about the river. So she has been wonderful, and just really the driving force behind this whole project. And I'm proud of the product that we have, and lots of people worked on it. I think I've told you all in another meeting there were 43 people in the community that actually actively worked on this. So it was a big effort and a fun effort, and we've loved it. And of course, we've got a lot to do. I don't know how we're going to keep Catherine on board other than to move her up here, but she's going to be retiring probably in the next year. This has been almost a full-time job for me. Catherine works on 3 other projects besides this one, and we're the smallest. Are we the smallest?
You take most of my attention.
Anyway, she has been wonderful, and I'm falling in love with her. And of course, that sheds a big light on the National Park Service, but I think she could be president if she wanted to be.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nix, seconded by Mr. Pendleton to accept, as presented, the strategic plan for the Bosque River Trail Corridor project. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries, unanimous vote. The plan is approved as presented. Okay. Don't get back up here.
More pictures.
That's right, more pictures. I wanted to wait till after we had the vote. Because you weren't gonna get this. No, we knew that with the work of these 3 individuals, I mean, Ruth and Meta, you're looking at a great team that has come together and has led, what you heard earlier, 40-plus folks over 2 years to produce what will be a very guiding and visionary document for our community. And it shouldn't be taken lightly. Please don't walk away from here ever again talking about it just being a trail, because it will never be just a trail. It is a part of our community that we, this evening, are committing to preserve for future generations. And we should be so proud of it as a community. So in honor of all your work, and Catherine, especially for your leadership, and our adoption of you as a citizen, please accept this bouquet of flowers as a small token of our appreciation. But in here you'll see some withered oak leaves, and those oak leaves are in there because we're planting a tree in your honor on the trail as a way to just for a long time to come to have Catherine's tree there on the trail. So, thank you very much. One more. Don't try. Good. Thank you. Okay, well, that was exciting. Great way to start the meeting off with a bunch of great things going on in our community, isn't it? And it's great validation to get somebody coming in from out of town talking about, reminding us of the special place that we call home. So, neat times. All right, with that, back to business, I guess. All right. We've got the fifth item on the agenda is the annual report from Specialized Billing. And Bruce, no pressure on you, but I don't have any flowers hidden for you. Now, Bruce is doing some great work, and I'll just let you go ahead and present your annual report for us.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to congratulate you on your achievements. I wish I had news like that, but I have good news, but it's not bringing you a new trail. It's that time again of the year for us to come back and give our annual report. I've met with the chief and the training officer today and sat down with Mark for a few minutes before council meeting. We're about on the same track as we were last year. We don't see a big deviation in runs. We don't see a big deviation in revenue. But the chief did ask me today, he goes, what can we do to get more money? So we have an ongoing project on that it's been going on in the past. We're gonna continue to do it. We're continuously developing a better Q&A policy for our software that the city's been using now for over a year exclusively. We're setting up training with the fire department to try to better increase their proficiency in report writing, and that's about the only way that we can do it. We can't increase your call volume, but we can try to maximize the revenue based on the calls that you're responding to. So we have an ongoing training policy. We're trying to make improvements. We have some other projects that are in the fire that we're not really ready to bring those out, but we are actively looking to try to get you every dollar we can for everything that you're entitled to. And I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions that Mayor and Council or Mr. Kaiser may have to throw at me.
Okay, any questions? Mr. Speen?
I noticed that we're using a 2011 fee schedule. Does that need to be updated? I looked at CMS today, and they have a 2013 schedule that the rates are quite different.
The rates are current. I think it should be a 2014.
The report
Or
says
it should be
2011.
2011.
It says 2011.
Whatever you sent us.
Whatever we sent you, those are the current rates. The rates are usually not adjusted, usually about every 5 years.
So are the rates adjusted are they based on CMS schedule, or?
It's based on, some of it is CMS, or some of it actually has to do with based on what other agencies are charging throughout Texas. A lot of it has to do with what hospitals are actually charging and the cost of drugs and procedures. CMS only will reimburse at a certain amount. Private insurance will reimburse at a certain amount. So you want to make sure that when you set your rates, not at such a low amount to where you're only going to collect Medicare rates when the private insurance will reimburse you at a higher percentage. Medicaid pays even less, and then private pay even pays even less than that. So the rates are adjusted about once every 5 years.
So the 2011 is the last time we adjusted rates?
Yes, sir. A major adjustment was done in 2011. We will probably be doing a major adjustment this year because there have been a lot of drug shortages, and it's been ongoing. And what this happens is when these drugs become shortage, your normal supplier, and we were talking to Stephen today about this, I think they have 4 suppliers that they try to get their EMS supplies from. And it's even come down in some cases where they've actually had to reach out to hospitals outside of this area because the supplies were not readily available. When that happens, that means the cost of your supplies that you normally would have budgeted for the last year, say, or normal saline, if it's in short supply, you may have to pay twice as much as you normally would. So we try not to fluctuate the rates with the fluctuating market. We try to stay at a happy medium because you don't want to be changing your rates daily on a daily basis. And that's what happens. You know, it's just like gasoline. You know, gasoline can go up one day and down the next day with the drugs, and a lot of the supplies are the same way. So we have to stay within a certain range, within a certain time period, and it averages out.
How much of our business is Medicaid?
Your Medicaid,
Percentage-wise? just-
percentage-wise, transport's about 50%.
So at 50%, how will we be affected by Star Plus, the changes in the Medicaid Star Plus plan for this part of Texas?
Now, you're talking about Medicare or Medicaid?
Medicaid, Star
Oh,
Plus.
Medicaid, I'm sorry, Star Plus, it's not gonna help you.
Yes,
Could- huh?
you're right, it's not. That's what I'm saying, if we take
No,
into
I'm
account.
sorry, I thought you were talking about Medicare.
No.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Medicaid is even lower than that. Probably about 10%.
Okay, so it won't have a big impact then.
No.
With managed care
only-
rolling out, it's gonna be tremendously impacting anybody doing Medicaid business.
In any medical business. The impact is gonna be coming down hard on everybody. There's certain things that we're having to go through now that basically everybody's being audited for fraud, including the city of Stephenville. This is ongoing, and I will be happy to note that we are coming out very clean. Everything has been fine on the Phantom audit, is what it's called. There is a program out there that I've talked briefly with Mr. Kaiser, and we're gonna be talking about more in the future within the next couple of months. It's to finish the budgets for this year, and it has to do with some additional reimbursement that may be available to the city. I can't tell you what's gonna happen to the state of Texas and the healthcare industry. It's, and I don't think anybody can. We expect certain changes, but every time we expect a certain change, somebody at the top of the food chain changes the rules of the game. So therefore, when those rules change, everything else has a trickle-down effect. Anytime there's any change in Medicaid, if you have more people going on Medicaid, you're not gonna see a big increase because your average reimbursement is only $238 per transport. And it costs the city, I think, probably about an average between $500 and $600 to roll the unit out the door. So you're losing money every time you transport a Medicaid patient.
One of the things I've noted, having been in the home health business and also consulting with some veterinary businesses, when your revenue is based largely on what you bill for, the unit of service, a lot of times it has to do with, are we doing a good job of actually charging for everything that we do? You know, veterinary clinics are some of the worst in the world about, at the end of the day, I forgot how much I billed, or what did all I do today, so I don't put it all on the bill.
Correct.
Same thing with home health agencies and so on. So how well are is our ambulance service in town, the city staff doing in billing for services that we provide?
They're actually doing a very good job, and that was one of the reasons that we came up early, and yes. Brian Petrello over here, he is a full-time paramedic with the city of Houston, he's stationed at the Intercontinental Airport. He is our EPCR training officer, and he's been meeting this afternoon with Stephen to go over some of the issues you're talking about. We're using the city elected to use our EPCR software about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. Within that software, we have put in a checks and balance system, and it has to do with interventions. Every time that paramedic documents an intervention in that software, those charges are anything associated with that intervention, such as an IV, a drug, a normal saline, intubation, anything that has to do with an intervention, those charges are automatically pulled over into our billing software. We have seen very few instances where the medics have not placed the intervention in the proper place. They put it in the narrative, and that kind of can allow something to slip through. But we still have a checks and balance system in our office to where we manually review each and every run record at least 3 times by 3 different individuals. And the last person who does that is the person who's doing the coding. He's a certified coder. And so the software catches what it can, and then we have personnel in our office. And there also, the fire department has a Q&A system that they have in place where Stephen can catch some of those, and the ones that those miss, we try to catch them in our office. We don't miss very much. It's very few.
Between the write-offs and for free transportation as well as co-pays and stuff that we don't collect, what is the total revenue loss there about? How much is the city supplementing that? I'm not talking about the actual cost of services versus our revenue, but what are we writing off about?
Writing off,
$1.5 million.
How much?
About $1.5 million.
About $1.5 million.
We're collecting a $500,000.
Writing off, so it's $2 million you're saying in total billing. So we're writing off $1.5 million of it?
some of
Depending
that's
on
going
which
to be,
report we
yeah,
have.
some of that is going to be contractual write-offs from Medicare and Medicaid.
That's
Now-
what I was thinking. But so how much do you think is actually a write-off of ours? Which is what taxes are supplementing.
As of last year, we've only written off probably less than 100,000.
That's a great thing. I appreciate that.
Now, that does not include Medicare and Medicaid. That is private insurance
You have a
and
contractual write-off on
and
that, so
private
there's nothing
pay.
to do about that.
And we are, like you say, we diligently try to collect anything we can. Now, there are a lot of cases where individuals can't pay, and there's a policy in place that we follow from the city to handle those accounts.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mayor and Council.
Right. So I'll consider a motion then to accept that report.
Mayor, I move the acceptance of the annual report from Specialized Billing.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Sveen to accept the annual report from Specialized Billing. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the annual report is accepted as presented. Thank you, Mr. Glover. You already-
He got out of here quick, did he?
Okay. Okay, now we'll move to item 6 on the agenda, which is a public hearing on the proposed annexation of 420 acres. And I will at this time open the public hearing on the proposed annexation of 420 acres. Survey A804, generally located east of US 281 and north of FM 8, Erath County, and ask Ms. Chu to come forward and give us a summary of the annexation.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. As required by Chapter 43 of the Local Government Code, the Municipal Annexation Act, we are required to prepare a service plan for the area proposed for annexation. I'm going to read it to you again, guys, sorry. It is required. With regard to police protection, the Stephenville Police Department will deliver the same level of service to the newly annexed area that is currently delivered to the residents residing within the city limits. That includes patrol, radio response to emergency calls, as well as routine service calls available to the general public, and this will occur on the effective date of the annexation. Water service is available to the area and shall be established as a part of the subdivision process in the same manner that water service is provided to other areas of our community within the corporate limits. None of these will be consistent with the utility service extension policy adopted by the City Council of the City of Stephenville. Wastewater service will be provided from our 3 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant that was completed in construction in 1995. Wastewater service is available to the area and shall be established in accordance with our subdivision ordinance policies and process. This will be consistent with the utility service and extension policy adopted by the council. Solid waste service is available to this area and would be provided through our contractor, Progressive Waste, if needed. It would be the same pickup and delivery as offered to the residents and the commercial businesses of Stephenville. With regard to public streets, all of the developed public rights-of-way annexed into the city are maintained by the city's street department. Routine preventative maintenance would occur on these public rights-of-way that are improved. Existing public streets will be considered for routine maintenance in accordance with our maintenance policy, with the greatest public need in planning and scheduling of street improvement projects. With regard to drainage, all public drainage systems that are located within the annexed area will be maintained in accordance with the city's policy. These public drainage systems, be they surface structures or bridges, culverts, storm pipes, would be maintained in their present state. Existing public systems, drainage systems will be considered for future maintenance, repair, and upgrading in accordance with our stormwater drainage ordinance. Fire service will be provided on the effective date of annexation from the Stephenville Fire Department, as well as emergency medical service to the area. This will be provided from both Fire Station Number 1 that is located at 212 Tarleton Street, or Fire Station Number 2 that is located at 1301 Pecan Hill Drive. With regard to other services, planning, building inspections, code enforcement, animal control, libraries, parks and recreation, municipal court, and general administration will be available to the people of this area on the effective date of annexation. If you have any questions regarding this general service plan, I would be happy to answer those. As the mayor said, this is the second public hearing.
Any questions from Mr. Chief?
Yeah, I guess, if we do this, there's no taxes coming to the city as a result of this annexation, is that correct?
These properties are tax exempt.
Okay. So we'll be providing all these extra services and not getting any revenue from that annexation? Is that
We
right?
would provide the services that are required.
All right, that's all I have now.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Savine?
When we first talked about the annexation, a couple of questions I had were the ability to serve the property in its total based on sewer and water off of Farm Road 8. As I read the report, on page 19, it talks about future east side sewer interceptor that loops around the 281 to the north side of the farm, and then also a 12-inch loop water line between College Farm Road and 281. My question at the time was, are we going to be able to service this from our existing system? And the answer I got, I thought, was yes.
Yes, we can.
And so we could service the whole thing without this interceptor or this loop.
We can serve this 420 acres
entire
without the
thing?
interceptor, yes.
Okay, so I guess that I'm confused. Once more definite development plan is identified between College Farm Road, it says a 12 and 8-inch water loop system may be required, and that's where it's talked about going between College Farm Road and 281. So it sounds like, and then also back up on the above that, the paragraph above it, it talks about the east side sewer, and we haven't discussed in council, nor have we had any, I have not heard of any concrete plans to even have an east side sewer. So you're saying we can service all that without that east side sewer mentioned here on that page 19?
Well, actually, on page 16, it talks about a general water and sewer service plan in this agenda. And then you do have the aerial photo, which shows a means of generally providing the service. Of course, dependent on the university's building and infrastructure, those would be done. But this area can be served from our existing,
With the existing system?
without the east sewer interceptor.
Okay, if we decided to sell water, not annex, but sell them water, which is what they're asking for, are they able to continue with sewer system with septic tanks and so on their property? If they wanted to expand, they could put septic tanks there. And
I
not go
don't
through
know.
Mr. Minkler's here with the university, and he can answer those questions. That would be,
Okay.
that's their facilities.
I mean, but legally, they could do septic tanks and whatever if they needed for sewer. We wouldn't have to sell sewer, we could sell water, not to recoup the water through sewer systems, is that right?
If they're
If they're in the city
if we do not,
If
if
we
we do
don't
not
annex
annex them,
them.
they can do what,
Yeah.
However they wanna do it.
it's not in our jurisdiction.
Okay, but we could still sell water if we wanted to. We'd have to look at our current policy for selling water outside city limits, but we could do that.
We have a policy to be able to negotiate and discuss it,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions from the council? Zachary?
I was just wondering, we're following a plan that was, master plan designed in 2006, and have there been any updates to that plan that take into consideration quite a bit of events that have happened since then, like the, economic downturns and some of these other things? Or are we still following a plan set in 2006, 8 years ago?
The city's comprehensive plan was adopted in '06, and it goes through the year 2030, and it is a basic land use with infrastructure improvements, and we are still following that plan. It has not been amended.
Has not been amended?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I see, again, lots of advantages, I suppose, for the annexee, assuming that they wanted to be annexed, which, as I understand, Tarleton has no objection either way. Is that correct? You don't object to being annexed, but you are, okay. But I don't really see, is there an economic advantage to Stephenville if we do this that would accrue in some fashion, whether that's making services available for later development somewhere else through the property, or, because we're going to spend a lot of tax dollars if we follow through an annex, and I don't see a return, I guess, coming back for that.
Well, obviously, okay, you will be able, with your master annexation plan, to increase the areas that would be available to bring into the city limits, other areas of property. Plus, when the utilities are extended to this area, the water and the sewer, then the university will reimburse the city for those costs or pay for those costs based on their development, just as any other developer would.
But not reimburse us for the costs of our fire department and our patrols and the other city services that we provide.
The general city services.
We'll just be paid for the water and the sewer.
Right, the utility infrastructure.
Are there development plans on the other side of this annex that would make this a economically sensible decision for the city to do this?
Well, I think all cities look to be able to increase their boundaries so they can continue to grow and have available land for development.
But at this point, there's nothing going on the other side of this annexed area that,
I'm not aware of any proposed development, no, ma'am.
okay.
Can I ask another?
Go ahead.
We sell water to Heritage Hill, which is
No,
not.
sir.
We do not sell water to them?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Heritage Hills has sanitary sewer service, which they pay for.
Do we sell water to any businesses outside the city limits?
I know we're selling water right now to the Ag Extension Office right here at the
Yes.
corner of this piece of property.
And do we sell water to those people at the same price as to the citizens, or higher price? Or do
It's
you
a
know?
higher price.
Okay. So if we annex them, we'll have to pay them, sell them water at one price. If we don't annex them, we sell it to them at a higher price?
Yes.
Okay. And won't have to provide all those services? Like police and fire and so forth?
No.
Okay. I don't have any more questions now.
Okay. Ed, go ahead.
Mr. Chu, I've yet to hear, and maybe we don't have a number, we can't calculate one. What is the actual cost we're looking at to the city of Stephenville if this property was to be annexed?
Well, the infrastructure cost would be borne with the development by the developer, which in this case would be the university.
So the only additional costs are gonna be just providing public service, I mean, water, police,
Police,
fire,
fire.
and plus, I guess if They want to adopt into the progressive waste contract, I guess, and
If
solid
they
waste.
choose to,
But
they
that's-
are currently under their own service and would remain.
Are there any other costs that the city would have to bear besides those that we can think of?
Only those in the basic service plan
Okay.
that you identified.
I mean, what about, I mean, Doug brings up a point with that page 16. What about future development, though? I mean, would that put additional burdens on the city for costs that we'd have to plan for in the future? That maybe not right now, we'd have to bear the cost, but future.
We always look with utility infrastructure extensions if there is a need to oversize, in other words, say a certain size water line would service the development of the university, and we see a need in the future because of the proposed land use plan that extends past that. We might oversize a line to have that capacity, and in this case, water. So the city does pay the difference in the material of the oversize versus what is required for the development. And we do that with any developer, to have an adequate line for them, for future development to tie on to.
But of course, there's no way for us to speculate those costs because we don't know what the future developments out there are going to be, correct?
No, we look to see, if it's commercial development, obviously, we're going to size those lines to handle that commercial or industrial development at that point in time.
But are they currently sized appropriately, though? The utility lines for whatever development that we foresee out there?
Well, the current lines go, where they are now, we would have to look at those and see. They are adequate to tie onto. But if we saw an area that is past that might be industrial development or potential for that, then we would pay, but we only pay the material cost.
My last question then, just a clarification for me. So if this property was annexed, then that would increase our ETJ, correct?
Yes, our
So we
ETJ
would
will
go a mile
extend.
past the annexation to be our new ETJ?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Steen, did you have any? Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Chu?
I keep hearing this fire service cost being brought up, and I'll be the first to tell you I'm not an expert when it comes to that. If there's a fire at the College Farm right now, we're still going out there, Stephenville Police Fire Department, and assisting, along with the county, correct? How does that change as far as fire response if we annex the property versus don't annex the property?
The primary response right now is the county.
But we still assist.
I would assume we would.
Any more questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just got one point of clarification from an earlier question. That on page 16, Betty, it does say that recently an 8-inch sewer line was extended along College Farm Road to the intersection of College Farm Road and FM 8. So there is access to a sewer line there at the College Farm entrance that could be provided for service, correct? That's the line that would be used.
The sanitary sewer service that is proposed is coming from a little further to the west on you can see in this bottom corner here.
Okay.
Yes, because of the depth of that line. But the line will be extended to the east. And this is just generally, would go up College Farm Road to catch the existing buildings and up to the north to some of the undeveloped area. And then you would see it coming across, it's kind of a draw creek in there, so we would get it deep enough to service and actually go back to be available to the experiment station, which does not have city sewer right now.
So the 8-inch line that's there now that was extended is of no use for this purpose? Is that what I just heard you say?
It is not shown to be the extension. It is going back to.
We just can't carry it far enough
not.
with the grade.
It would be above ground.
We've got it over there, and we could extend it some, but to service the entire area, we're going to need lower depth, which is what really has happened down here about the creek.
Yeah.
It allows it to do that. We could extend straight up, but it just won't go very far before we surface out, in essence.
Okay.
So, but yes, there is, I mean, it was designed that way when it was all put in.
Okay. So I guess going back to the previous presentation on this, the concept was for them to be able to tie into that line and the water line for water and sewer. there wouldn't have to be a septic option.
The proposal was to have both water and
Water
sanitary
and
sewer
sewer.
service,
Right,
yes,
right,
sir.
okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Then at this time, I'll see if anyone wishes to come forward and speak in favor of the proposal. And I think I've got Mr. Winkler, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure this is working. Council members, we are interested in water service there, as I've said before in these chambers. We're not good at making water. We're not talking about a lot of water, so it's all the more expensive when you make it in small batches. And we have to have special license, I believe, to have inspections, and we have to have the chlorination and the pumps and all that equipment, so it's kind of expensive. And we're at a point now where we need to make a pretty significant investment, which, don't hold me to this, but roughly I believe is about what we paid to have the lines extended anyway. So for me, it's a simple decision to go ahead and have the city provide water and sewer, which the city is going to be much more efficient at, and just makes long-term sense to do that for Tarleton. And again, we're not talking about anything other than well, small use, building use, but not agriculture, not animals, not irrigation. So.
All right, any questions for Mr. Winkler?
Yeah.
Mr. Wagner?
What about, do you have any idea whether any significant underground water under that 420 acres out there that could be accessed?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. Well, I understand the city.
We have a well there now, but I don't have any quantitative data.
Okay. But, you know, the city believes it needs some more groundwater and is looking for it in different places. Can that be explored along with this as to having access to that for groundwater out there?
Yes, it could be explored, but I don't know what's involved in that. I would have thought that that would be on the table already if that was a real possibility, as opposed to Honeywell. And obviously, we're exploring Honeywell because I think that is known to be an aquifer.
Yeah, or maybe both.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Winkler? Okay. Well, thank you very much for just becoming a regular member here. So. Anyone else wishing to come forward and speak in favor of the proposal? Okay, anyone wishing to come and speak in opposition to the proposal? Just come forward and state your name and address, please.
My name is Shelby Slauson. My address is 101 Jason Court, Stephenville. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, it is a privilege to stand before a governing body and have the opportunity to speak out about some concerns, and it's an honor to be here before you tonight and have a little bit of your time. I don't mean my comments in any manner antagonistic to Tarleton. I think they are doing exactly what they need to do. They need to grow and expand and improve their infrastructure so that they can provide the best possible education experience for their customer base. And their focus is rightfully on themselves and their student constituency. But the council is similarly right to focus on the taxpayers and the citizens, of which Tarleton is one, but not all. And having carefully followed this last election cycle and some of the talking points in that, it seems that there were two issues that were posed by various candidates as being significant concerns for Stephenville, and that's the smart growth of our tax base and our water supply. And those seem relevant to this discussion in as much as the annexation, it seems as though it may be somewhat contradictory to those goals. And there are a couple of concerns that arise for little average citizen Jane. Would the annexation, if it's approved, is it going to count against the city's 10% annual limit, or is Tarleton treated as state-owned and excluded from that 10%? Is the upside to annexing a tax exempt parcel going to be that it will allow for an ETJ bump out? And if so, to what limits and what particular properties are going to be included in that extension of the ETJ? In the agenda packet from last week, there was an email in there from Dr. DeTavio to Mr. Kaiser, I think dated May 20th, that said that College Farm will be, quote, a large customer for water and sewer services. And, you know, I think that there's kind of a concern about just what is the anticipated average quantity of usage that is going to be involved with providing services out there to College Farm. And how does that anticipated usage expedite the city's need for some new wells? Will the water restrictions in the drought response plan apply to College Farm? And Dr. Tatavio's email stated that the university's vision requires a partnership with the city of Stephenville, and they look forward to additional conversations on how we can work together to enhance the water supply of the community. We are indeed in a partnership. Begs a few more questions about what exactly is the city asking of its partner with regard to Honeywell Ranch. How long have you been trying to negotiate it? And if this is a water-centric issue on both sides, why would we not take the time to negotiate that now? I'm not saying that College Farm shouldn't be annexed, but I don't think that it should happen like this next month. If the water supply is a critical issue for our community and our neighbors' experience suggests that it is, then I encourage you to table this, take the time for further discussions and negotiations before unceremoniously handing over the milk in the hopes that your goodwill may someday result in a gratuitous cow purchase. And I thank you for your consideration and your time, and I would ask the mayor and the council to include a copy of my comments in the record if I provide to the city secretary.
Any questions for Ms. Lawson? Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to come and speak in opposition to the proposal? Okay, seeing none, at this time I will close the public hearing on the proposed annexation of 420 acres. And thank everyone for their participation in this topic this evening. So before I move on, is there any other comments from the council or questions on that?
I got a question. I asked it of Mark. I mean, he may defer to somebody else. I'm not sure. I received an email from a citizen asking about water capacity and the drought restrictions that we place. Could someone explain to the citizens that drought restriction? Because I don't think it's necessarily a capacity issue as it's utilization, how much we utilize. So would you just explain to the community about our restrictions and our capacity to produce water?
The restrictions being our drought contingency plan?
Yes, drought contingency plan.
And I can't answer that question immediately. Yes, they fall under the same guidelines of following the drought contingency. I mean, they're not exempt from that particular aspect. Now, our policy is, and we are currently in stage one. We actually have, I believe there are 5 stages to it. We're in stage 1, that we have said that we're in drought conditions in our community as recognized by the state, and Mayor makes that declaration, and in their turn, we're asking for voluntary participation to be very conscientious. Probably the most notable is that we ask that you just water your grass twice a week instead of every day, kind of a thing. Another one that has been of great discussion has been not leaving, making sure that you have a control aspect over a water hose when you're washing your cars or doing some of those kind of things. It is not mandatory, but is asking for voluntary participation. Stage 2 goes to a point whereby we say there will be, you're given really 2 days to be able to water. And I forgot they're spelled out in the policy. Stage 3 goes to, it starts restricting hours and some of the others, and I believe Stage 4 goes to asking businesses to begin restrictions, and then Stage 5 is, I don't know, I'd have to call Wichita Falls and ask them what they're going through right now, because I know theirs is at that dire strait. We have been successful now from a capacity, I hope that answers the question. That's about as generic and as simple as I can keep it, and I hope that answers the majority of those questions. There are no limitations on businesses until Stage 3. I know car washes especially get real concerned about what those restrictions are. Stage 2 is where we do go into pretty much saying that we want your water or have restrictions to 2 days a week. From a capacity perspective, there's many studies, there's a lot of different discussion about our capacity calculations, and we just had an audit that actually is, in my mind, is creating another bit of question that we'll be talking about in the near future. But in general terms, let me just kind of state it this way. Our magical number, we're able to produce 6 million gallons of water, and we can do that for a relatively stable period of time, but we cannot continue to maintain that level for weeks on end. Now, with that said, the magical points that are within our drought contingency plan, that are within all of our policies, there's at 4 million gallons, it starts really getting our attention. And when I say our attention, what happens is that because we're so dependent upon our wells, we have to allow those wells enough time, one, in the heat, and then two, allow them enough time to be able to generate the capacity out of the aquifer into the storage tanks to be able to handle the next day. So there's a bit of a maintenance condition of trying to be good stewards of the aquifer itself. So what most citizens may or may not hear is when we get to a 4 million gallons limit, then they'll start hearing maybe we'll have to go to Stage 2. Do we have to go to Stage 2? Will we have to go to Stage 3? A lot of that depends on what I'm going to really just say is when we get to that 4 million gallons. Now, where are we today? I believe I think we're averaging around 2. I think we have reached, I believe I saw 2.8 one day, I think 2.7, 2.8. So 2.8 million gallons a day to 4 million gallons is still quite a nice separation from any concerns about our limits. I give that a lot of that attribute to being able to work with both the well water and the surface water, and being able to manage those. And I give a lot of our credit to all the staff out there that's doing that. So hopefully I've kind of talked a little bit about the capacity issues. I don't know if there's something more in particular about that. There's really...
Would you visit or specify just a little bit what you all presented to council a few months ago about our surface water capacity versus our utilization? We've gone up from like 5%, I think in round numbers, 5% to 10% in the last several years. What is the capacity of our contract currently with the surface water?
It's based upon acre feet of the water, and it's actually 1,826 acre feet of water. So how does that actually compute? It computes into on an annual basis, and being able to do some of those things. What from the blending perspective, what I think I'm hearing from your question, and all this information's on our website. Please feel free. Anybody's welcome to go and identify this. But we originally started at around 3% participation. In the summer, we do try to pick it up a little bit more to allow our wells that time to recharge. And we've been really around 5 to 8. I think we've gone up to 10, but for such short periods of time. I believe we're averaging around 8%, 5 to 8%.
So we have the capacity to increase
last
by
year.
how much, do you think?
Well.
Can we go to 15% if we wanted to?
Yeah, see, we're gonna get limited by their restrictions as well, because they're and they're dealing with their dry contingency. I believe they're under stage 2, under their dry contingency plan now. We work very closely with Upper Leon River Municipal Water District and the BRA. They're having to kind of partner between the two of them and work out what those guidelines are. They've drafted a lot of it to be very similar to ours. Quite honestly, they took ours and then actually implemented most of that, and then have been modifying it to meet some of the BRA requirements, Brazos River Authority requirements. So, again, there's a lot of folks monitoring, keeping an eye out, and let me just say that in general terms, though, day in and day out, our citizens do a very good job of being very conscientious in managing these water resources and helping us. And I can't say enough about our staff and how they manage these resources to continue to be good stewards of the aquifer, but at the same time meeting our demands here. But from a demand perspective, if we'll get into those 4 million marks, you'll start hearing people talk. But until then, again, please just keep doing what you're doing, and is what I want to just continue to say. So hopefully I've answered your questions as well.
You did, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say something. I'm obviously a rookie here. This is my second full meeting, my first year, and I'm new to the relationship between Stephenville and Tarleton, but I'm not unmindful of the importance of Tarleton to Stephenville. But the first meeting last week, we gave a little street to Tarleton, and which wasn't really a big deal. It wasn't a big street. And it's kind of interesting to me, the minutes say we abandoned it. We didn't abandon it. They asked for it and we gave it to them. And tonight, we're in here and talking about taking over responsibility for 420 acres and not getting any tax revenue for it. And every time they take over a house or something that's taxable, well, we lose the tax benefit from that. And it's just a two-way street, and they need to be aware of it, and we need to be aware of it. It's kind of like a marriage where both people need to think about what's going on for the other one. It needs to be, like I said, this is just my second meeting, but it seems like everything is going in one direction so far, So.
If it's not, if I could address the council.
Yeah, please.
I appreciate your sensitivity. I understand that, but it's not at all one way. If we're taking over a house, it's because we're growing. We're supposed to be hiring 40 faculty this fall. Those are 40 people that are buying houses from around these areas. That benefits Stephenville in a big way. The only reason we need water or need anything is because we're growing and adding to the economic vitality of this town. We can't do it without partnership and having Stephenville succeed. There's no advantage to us to see Stephenville sink and not have tax base and all that. That's like shooting yourself in the foot. But it's definitely a win-win.
Okay. Well, that's what we all need to strive for, and I think it can be done. But I've just seen most of it going one direction so far. But I'm sure it goes the other way a lot of times too.
Yeah. And I have not shared this with the council, but we have a well on campus for watering, for a source of water for us for our central loop for heating and cooling and some irrigation. We have several wells on campus, but that well that we've used for the central loop is too silty. So we've abandoned that effectively, and we use city water for our central loop. I think it's about 16 million gallons a year. We're going to dig a new well. I'm putting $1 million into that so that we don't use potable water for central loop, which you don't need. It's a waste of that scarce resource.
Yeah.
I haven't said anything because that 16 million is a drop in the bucket on the city's resources on a daily basis. But that's probably far more we're going to get back and we would use at the farm. So we're not really sucking city resources on balance.
But that may be true.
For use at the farm.
And that'd be kind of complicated to figure that out, but anyway.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Meckler. Appreciate that. Anything else on this? It's a great discussion, and I really appreciate the citizens coming out tonight to talk about this. Let me just make two comments in closing before we move on to the other topic. And I will ask Mr. Kaiser to put this topic on the agenda for next Tuesday for us as a council to continue to discuss this, so we can take what we've heard tonight and discuss it some more. But let me give us two ways to maybe put this in context, and encourage us as we go forward. How many of us have taken a trip and just jumped in the back seat and not had a road map and not knowing what the plan is? You're told we're going and we'll get there when we get there. And the trip seems to it goes on forever, and you don't know where you are when you stop. Is it 3 more hours? Is it 2 more hours? Versus you now being responsible for the trip, and you've got to decide, where are we going to stop? How long is it going to take us to get there, and those type things. I think this is a time for our community where we've got to get on the same travel plan as a city and a university, more now than ever before. We have done a great job of that in the past, but this is the merging of some very significant and fantastic growth that is occurring at Tarleton, coupled with our city's need to respond to that growth in a meaningful and cooperative manner. And we can do that. We have the capability to do that. And the second point I want to make is that we have the luxury of time on our side in this case. I mean, thank goodness that we are not sitting in Wichita Falls, Texas today having to tell Midwestern State University that they can't construct the 2 buildings that they got approved by the state legislature last year because we're out of water. Thank God that is not the case here in Stephenville, Texas. And we owe it to those that went before us that took the effort to ensure that we preserved our access to water over time. Okay, so that's the one issue on one hand. The other is to support the largest employer in our community, really the lifeblood of the vibrancy that we have. And we can do both. We've proven to be able to do both. I think Tarleton needs to know that we as a community, and I think the council will agree with me, that we are committed to ensuring that you are our partner for years, decades to come. And so let's not allow the fact that we got a little focused on annexation and what's going on with that to detract from our commitment to water in this community, because that's the key issue here. And the resolution of this is how to provide it in a timely manner so we don't break things along the way. And I think the discussion that we've had in the last month at least on this has been very encouraging, because we have taken more of a measure twice, cut once approach to this issue. And I want everyone that's listened tonight to be encouraged that, if you're sitting, Mr. Minkler, from your seat, and as I talked to Dr. DeTavio last week, our community is committed to Tarleton, and we need you to hear that loud and clear. But we as a community and the citizens need to know that we as a council are committed to you, and our obligation is to ensure that we don't break something along the way. And hopefully that's what you've heard tonight. And I think, I'm encouraged by the discussion, and I think we can move forward from here in a very beneficial and constructive manner. I mean, there are other things that are available to us in that area that we shouldn't forget about. We've got a dairy center, we've got a fiber, we've got a railroad, we've got 281. All of that begs to us as a community to better understand what are the economic development opportunities in that area. And there are many. And there are discussions, that need to take place about what is the potential of that area. But we don't need to get, as the saying goes, ahead of our headlights at the same time. So anyway, we'll just make sure we've got this on the agenda for Tuesday. And I think the last meeting that we had on Tuesday, which was an open meeting, I know we asked Mr. Kaiser to provide to the council the more details on the option of providing water vice annexation, so that we can look and weigh the two options as we move forward. But both options consider providing water, so there's no question there. Okay, and with that, we'll move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is to consider an energy management services agreement to save money. And this is an exciting opportunity for us as a community. A great example of the staff always looking for ways for us to not cut corners but cut costs. And so, Mr. Kaiser, do you want to give us the summary on this?
I have to give just a hair of history. About a year ago, we did contract with a company. I believe actually the name of the company is called the Five, F-I-V-E, 5. And when we did, they guaranteed us we were able to lock in an electric rate for the city of Stephenville and all of our facilities at around, I believe it's a little over 5 cents per kilowatt hour. That'll go all the way to the year 2020. And with rising electric rates, it was just a great action on our part, and it's continued to prove to be true. One of the things, they contacted staff here, I want to say the first part of this month, middle of this month, and said that there is a deadline to sign up for a program whereby in the summertime, if we have electric generation units, which we have several electric generation units around on some of our facilities, that we can sign up in a program. They will call us at scheduled events for approximately during high energy consumption periods, primarily when you start hearing about maybe some lack of generation throughout the state of Texas. When I talked about how in the drought contingency world in Waterside, whenever we start asking businesses at a certain level, you start asking businesses to participate. Well, we're in essence saying that we're going to participate on an annual basis during the summer months if there becomes a challenge, and we will agree to turn on our generator for 15 minutes, and that 15 minutes, no more than 15 minutes once a month during the summer months, and I believe it goes from May to September. To sign up, it doesn't necessarily make us do it, or does it? Let me put it another way. We do have, by signing up, it says we're going to participate when they call us and ask us. What it doesn't do is, in essence, we get to just turn it off for that 15 minutes, and we can only have to do it once a month. We will save $20,000 a year under this program, approximately $20,000 a year under this program. And actually, I think our savings, and I can't remember what it was, but we're going to be paying them a fee to do this, but roughly they estimated on our facilities now, and as we continue to sign up our additional generators, it could continue to grow. So with that kind of just said, I'll tell you that we were reaching a deadline, I want to say maybe May 15th. I signed it on our behalf and have committed us to that. I'm asking for your verification and support. Otherwise, I'll need to back out of this program. But again, it does commit us to turn our generators on once a month for approximately 15 minutes at a scheduled predetermined time. To be allowed to, in essence, help with the ERCOT, which is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, in managing the electricity through the state of Texas. And this contract would go through for summers through the year 2019, or no, actually before the summer of 2019. So it would make a commitment for 4 summers here.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Kaiser?
Those are our backup generators you're referring to, is that correct?
Oh, it is the backup generator.
We have to turn those on periodically anyway, to make sure they're running correctly.
We test them, and we're going to make it our monthly test. Exactly. I mean, it really is a win-win type situation. It's a great opportunity for us to save some money, and I appreciate their advice at recommending these folks to partner with and help us save money.
Well, last summer, as I was driving through Sweetwater to Snyder, and there was no wind blowing, which is unusual in that part of God's earth. All the windmills were standing still, and I heard Dallas browned out because of that. So I could see the need for them, and if everybody in Texas did that, just think about the juice we push down the line for them. So I think it's a good idea. Yeah, especially since we have to do it anyway, keep them.
For us, we're doing it anyway. That's reality of this situation.
Any other questions for Mr. Kaiser? Okay, then I guess I'll ask for a motion to approve this agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the energy management service agreement with MP2 Energy LLC.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Pendleton. Mr. Nix?
Yes, sir.
Okay, approved, seconded by Mr. Nix to approve the energy management services agreement with MP2 Energy as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries, unanimous, approved as presented. All right, the next item on the agenda is to consider approval of the council committee appointments. And just so the citizens know, we have 7 committees that the council has organized in. Each committee is chaired by a council member. We use the committee structure as a way to take issues like annexation, for example, and be able to have the committee work and develop that issue before it comes to the council. So one of the roles of the mayor is to put that committee structure together and present it to the council, and for it to be approved after the May election. So I've done that. It's been we discussed it in the council session last week, and I'm prepared to present this for consideration and approval.
Mayor, I move approval of the standing committee assignments as shown on page 26 of our agenda packet.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Pendleton to approve the council committee appointments as presented. Any discussion?
One question, Mayor. At our previous meeting, we had discussed some realignments of the committees which are not reflected in these assignments, if I understand it correctly, but that will be a discussion for future meetings, right?
That is correct. And I can go into that right now if you'd like, just to give, yes, there is a proposal that I presented last week. I intend to bring back to the council as a formal proposal, and that's a realignment of one committee to create a community facilities park and recreation committee that would allow us as a council to focus on those issues related to the airport, cemetery, library, senior citizen center, parks and recreational related matters. And the committee assignments that are presented tonight do not include that, because as I discussed last week, I'd like for us as a council to be able to look at this and make sure that we're comfortable with that realignment, and we feel like it's the right approach to take. So does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries, unanimous vote. Committee assignments are approved as presented. Okay, the next item is to move to the election of the Mayor Pro Tem. And we've got those, that position that's stated in the city charter as the council shall elect from its members a Mayor Pro Tem who shall perform the duties of the mayor in case of the absence or disability of the mayor. So that's the as presented in the city charter. So I'll entertain any nominations for that position at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate Russ McDonald for Mayor Pro Tem.
I second.
Okay, so we've got a nomination. I'll take that in the form of a motion by Mr. Wagner, seconded by Ms. Zachary to consider Mr. Russ McDaniel for Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries, unanimous vote. Mr. McDaniel is the new Mayor Pro Tem. So congratulations. Okay. Yeah.
That's why I wore a tie tonight, he's saying.
Okay, the next item is the election of a voting representative to the North Central Texas Council of Governments. And The Council of Governments is an organization that we're a member of, is a city that's the North Central Texas region. I believe there's 9 or 10 regions within the state, and they're headquartered in Arlington. And what we need to do now is also elect a representative that will be a voting member of that group. They meet once a year. They have a board, representative cities that participate in that, and then they have periodic meetings. So I had one inquiry on this, so I think that's a snag if we're trying to get somebody roped into this.
Mr.
So Mr. Wagner,
Yeah, man.
has requested to be the representative. Is there
Oh,
anyone
okay.
else
No,
that
I
would
was-
like to?
I was going to move that we nominate Boyd Wagner to be Stephenville's representative to the NCTCG.
Okay. Here, a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Zachary, seconded by Mr. Savine to approve Mr. Boyd Wagner as the voting representative to the North Central Texas Council of Governments. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Wagner. It's,
No party.
No parties?
Can't go to parties.
I resigned.
616.
To all the conferences.
Well, their office is across the
We're gonna
street
watch
from
your
Six
receipt.
Flags. so.
He understands there's not additional compensation for that.
That's right. There's no
Well,
extra money
we can
for
talk
this.
about that now, that he's,
Right.
that he's got the
The
duty.
scope of duties.
Right,
Other dues is assigned.
okay. Well, with those nominations and elections, I just want to say to the council that I'm excited about us working together as a team, and I think we had discussion last week about these assignments to make sure that we were all on the same page, and I know that I encourage and appreciate your input in that, and I think we're poised to move forward here in a very positive manner. So thank you very much for your participation in that. All right, the next item 11 on the agenda is to consider approving a contract with Johnson Controls for an advanced metering infrastructure. And this is something the council has been discussing for several months now, going on more than a year. And so tonight we're bringing that forward. And I guess Mr. Kaiser will move to Mr. Williams to give us a summary on that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We talked about this a little bit last week, and I guess I'll start with a quote from Mr. Glover's presentation earlier tonight. What can we do to get more money? End quote. And just like we talked about on the MP2 contract with the electrical budget in the state of Texas, what this contract does before you is provides the action to address our unmetered water. So it addresses our water budget in effect. Johnson Controls and the council and staff have been working on this project for approximately 3 years now. And we've pulled just about all the freebies out of Johnson Controls that we can up to this point.
Maybe not.
Don't get me wrong. We had them perform some testing for us, and what that testing showed was that we have a significant number of meters that are underperforming. Our accuracy has failed in many areas. And I won't go into all the numbers for you. We've presented this several times, but what this contract does, it provides a full-scale meter replacement and a retrofit of meters. It's approximately a $3 million cost, and that sounds pretty scary up front, but one of the great things about this project is that it's an energy savings contract, and under the local government code, chapter 302 allows a project like this to take place. And one of the provisions of that code is the revenues from the project must, it reads shall, exceed the cost of the project. So what this project does, provides a way to increase our meter accuracy, make sure that all of the water that's being used is accounted for. the city recoups that lost revenue. Johnson Controls enters into this equation because of the size of the company that they are and the services that they provide. They provide a guarantee on that payback. We've designed a project here that provides a 10-year payback. So in other words, whatever the cost of the project is, the revenues are guaranteed to pay the cost of the loan each and every year. And that loan is to be paid off in 10 years. And Johnson Controls says that if we don't do that, or we won't be able to do that in some way, we will write you a check for the difference. And I can answer a few of the questions about maybe what the project does in general or specific terms, but I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Vince Grueling. He's a registered professional engineer with Johnson Controls and has worked on the details of this contract as well. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you have about the contract.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Nix?
Nick, the existing meters we use are a mechanical type?
That's correct. We use a rotor type meter or plunger type meter where mechanical workings, and everybody knows and heard the story about how hard the water is, and what that hardness of the water has done is caused those meters to fail earlier than probably what they should have. The meters that are proposed use a different technology with absolutely no moving parts, and therefore are guaranteed to provide a meter accuracy of 98.5% for 20 years, minimum accuracy of 98.5% for 20 years. In addition to that, the first 10 years of that is a 100% replacement. So if the meter fails in year 10, this manufacturer will give us a brand new meter at no cost.
And you answered my next question. The expected meter life of these new technology meters is approximately 20 years?
It is guaranteed for 20 years. We hope it goes much further than that.
Okay.
Because obviously after the first 10 years, we should see a drastic increase in profit at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pendleton?
Mr. Williams, I guess two questions. Number one, these meters will be wirelessly, I guess, read, correct? Be signals transmitted
That's
wirelessly.
correct. It's actually called an Advanced Metering Infrastructure, or AMI, project, and it's a two-way system whereby the meter will transmit a signal to City Hall so that it can be read instantaneously. Because it's a two-way system, City Hall can also receive a phone call from a resident and go and ping that meter and tell that resident what their usage is.
And currently, we have somebody out there that reads every meter by manually, I guess?
Well, we have a touch read system, so they're not actually opening lids, but it does take approximately half of the month for them to just read the meters.
Okay. And if the council approves this and somebody wants to opt out of this wireless meter, is that an option?
Absolutely. We're working on a policy to put that in place right now. The project, it calls for up to 1 year to make all of the improvements. So we feel like we've got time before the system will go into effect to make sure that policy is tweaked.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Sveen?
We discussed financing this either through loan or lease. Have y'all come to the point of making a recommendation? We discussed at the council meeting back, potential lease or loan.
This is a twofold action. That is correct. This will initiate this. I think I described it as, you say you want to buy a house, and then, hey, we're going to go to the bank and say, okay, here's what we want to buy.
Okay.
And we'll get that. We've never wavered from, we are going with the capital lease program in this
Okay. I just know there's some
respect.
discussion
And
last time
we're
about it.
gathering, I'm going to call it bids, if you would, soliciting those to come back with that recommendation at the July council meeting or throughout this, as we've had meetings this month for other discussions. We'll be discussing it further, I'm sure.
Also, we discussed that if the revenues exceed, if the charges for water exceed what we expect them to, which is more than the payment, we're able to, it will have an early payoff capability in this loan, you think? for this lease payout?
In the capital leases, all of the
So
contracts
it
I've
could be
seen so
9
far.
years, 9.5 years, 8 years.
All
or
the
whatever.
contracts I've seen so far have had that.
Okay, so we wouldn't consider anything other. The next thing is
That's
just.
not under their contract, it's under
Yeah,
the
the
lease, yes.
leasing agreement. The other part is that this is to pay out over $3 million, or $3 million over 10 years, which then creates at year 11 on another $300,000 or $400,000 a year in revenue for infrastructure that we don't have capital capabilities of right now.
That's the intent, yes, sir.
That is the intent. I remember the first council meeting I came to, you made a presentation, and it scared the hound out of me when you discussed how much water we produce versus we capture back, and how much water we were losing. It shocked me that we're giving water away so much. So I appreciate the plan and your help. All the freebies you've given us, keep giving us some freebies.
I never mind driving with you.
There you go. Appreciate it.
A
You've been
couple
very,
new sets of tires.
you've been very cooperative. I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
I have a comment, Mayor.
Mr. McGann?
Nick, you know how I feel about this program and how much I appreciate all your hard work on it, and it is shown in the paperwork. And I would just like to thank you and the rest of the staff for your efforts on this. It's been a long time coming.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay. Then, thank you, gentlemen, very much. And we'll,
Mayor, are you ready for a motion?
Yes, I am. Oh, well, wait a second. I've got, thank you. I've got a citizen request for comment. Ms. Dorsett.
I saw my neurologist about 6 weeks ago now. He advised that I not spend another night in my home in this town. That's how dangerous the wireless meter is. That I was to move immediately. And now, am I right that you're telling me this is another wireless meter? I knew when I saw this agenda today and saw the advanced metering and absolutely wanted to throw up. I don't know where to go. I have a camper in my driveway. I can't use the generator. It's too loud for the neighbors. I sleep upstairs without the electricity on. I am an absolute captive in my own home. I'll be glad if you'd like to see the picture of my chest. You can see what it's done to my balance and equilibrium. I had to get a neighbor to come and get me up off the floor. I'm not the only one in this town. I'm just the only one who comes and talks to you about it. And now you're telling me you're going to bring another wireless device. You know, wireless, that's safe, wonderful source of energy because it's invisible. Well, folks, I know from experience that carbon monoxide is invisible and it is not safe. I actually thought that I had a wireless water meter already. I actually did. What I have been horrified about was the wireless gas meter that some communities, I mean, they're just rushing. And by the way, we do have our opt-out, but it's not coming. And I've talked to the next to the top guy with Encore in Texas. And he actually sounded a little bit weepy for me, knowing what my neurologist told me about my spine and what he's seeing in terms of the deterioration of my spine that has happened. He believes absolutely secondary to the effects of the electromagnetic radiation emitting electric meter. 1 minute. I don't know. You'll have to decide. I don't know where to go. What in the world am I going to do? I just moved home 18 long months ago, which had been sheer, pure agony for me. I begged you guys, and you were very responsive, August 13th, last summer. But I begged the PUC April 19th, and I begged the Encore January the 10th. Having moved here December 7th, 2012, which is the date being Pearl Harbor Day, being very appropriate for a move. I had absolutely no idea that those smart electric meters were being deployed here. Yes, sir, military term. And from what I understand, the city council was not informed. So you never had a chance to say absolutely not. You never had a chance? Did no one ever tell you that Encore was about to do this to your population? With all of these terrible side effects, with groups all over this state, all over this nation, all over Canada, all over the world, fighting to get them out of their communities and off of their homes. And now, what do I do? You tell me what to do. You tell me what to do. What am I supposed to do? And then you're gonna bring another one? So I don't know. You know, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. Bring another one. I mean, it's just gonna drift down to City Hall. No collector meters, not gonna ping off each other. No pinging. It's my time. But does he not ping? Do they visit with each other like the electric meters do? Hope I'm talking to the right person who is up here. If I'm talking to the wrong person, I'm so sorry. We'll go have a margarita after this.
Ms. Dorsett, we
Thank you for listening.
Yes, ma'am.
I wish you could help.
Well, and I think as your statement is evidence, the council did hear loud and clear what you said last August, and many of us wrote letters and got engaged with the Public Utility Commission, and so we're doing what we can as a council, and obviously we also were sensitive to that issue about opting out and wanted to ensure that that was a component of this program as we move forward.
Yes,
So,
I appreciate it.
so your input is making a difference, and I just want you to know that.
It's a nightmare. I came home to a nightmare.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments on this issue? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the contract with Johnson Control for the advanced metering infrastructure.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Nix, seconded by Mr. McDaniel to approve a contract with Johnson Controls for advanced metering infrastructure as presented. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimous. I just want to remind citizens of the comment that Mr. Kaiser made earlier. This is like when you go to a car dealer and you picked out the car you want, and now you got to go figure out if you can afford to pay for it or not. So we will have a second discussion about this, and that's the funding mechanism for this as we move forward. Okay, then we'll move on to item 12, which is to consider approval of the professional services proposal with CH2ML OMI for regulatory technical based assistance with local limits compliance, a new one of many unfunded mandates from the state of Texas to ensure regulatory compliance with our wastewater discharge. So, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. You hit the nail on the head. It's an unfunded mandate. Our wastewater treatment plant permit was up for renewal this year. As part of that renewal process, the state has mandated that we renew our local limits. Stephenville, who's been an operator of a wastewater treatment plant for 18 plus years, has offered to perform that service for us. done quite a bit of research on the cost as much as we can to determine what's a good cost, what's a good deal, what's not a good deal. All of the indicators that I've received are that Stephenville is reaching out to us to take advantage of that and acknowledging our partnership of many years, because I think that this is more than just a good deal. I think they're doing it just above cost.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Williams?
You said you're funding it out of your existing budget.
We can.
There you go.
We sure can. We don't want to, but we can.
Okay, that's the spirit.
We're
Okay,
getting
any,
some freebies there.
any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the professional service proposal for CH2 MH Hill MMI regulatory technical based contract. Whatever.
Second.
A long one.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Pendleton, seconded by Mr. Hogan to approve the professional service proposal as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimous vote, and we'll proceed with that as presented. Now we move on to the consent agenda.
Mayor, excuse me just a minute, but
All right.
I would like to acknowledge Mr. Johnny Davis being in the office. He's the plant project manager for this corporation, and they've done a really good job of operating and maintaining our facility out there. He makes a number of our meetings, even when he doesn't have anything on the agenda, and I wanted to acknowledge him and the work that he oversees out there for us.
Yeah, okay, right. Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate that. All right, now we'll move to the consent agenda. And I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Hogan, seconded by Mr. Pendleton to approve the consent agenda as presented in our packet.
Mayor, I hate to do this, but I need to pull off the special meeting on May 27th, A3, under the consent agenda, please, sir.
Okay. So can we proceed to vote on the consent agenda absent the A3? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so the consent agenda is approved with the exception of item A3, which is on page 95. So, Mr. McDaniel.
Cindy, I was wondering, I noticed in the special meeting last week, we didn't have television coverage of it. Did we have a recording of the meeting?
Yes, sir.
On tape?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. The reason I pulled, and you can see it on page 95, pulled this off of the agenda is in an effort for transparency. Number 2 says, consider adopting ordinance 2014-15 declaring all of McCune Street located adjacent to blocks 55, 56, College View Edition, Stephenville, Texas, to have been abandoned as a street. And this is something that Boyd mentioned earlier. It wasn't abandoned. You can use that term, but I would move to amend the minutes for it to include the cost estimates provided to us by the city administrator of 50 cents a square foot, and the cost of 2 appraisals of $1,500 each. In the minutes to reflect that this street was conveyed to Tarleton State University at no charge. Someone 5 or 10 years from now looking at the minutes, I think would have a better idea of what actually happened here. We gave the street away to build goodwill with the university, and it was based upon information provided to us of a value $4,000 to $4,800 on the street, and 2 appraisals. And I would just like that reflected in the minutes. So I move we do that and ask for a second.
I second motion.
Okay, so
You don't have to repeat all that.
No, that's why the first question I asked Mr. Thomas was if she had a recording.
So basically, it's the content of the recorded minutes to be reflected in the minutes for this section, as opposed to just, in addition to just the wording on the adoption of the ordinance.
Yes, sir. I see the city secretary with her hand up.
I think that was my question. By changing the minutes, are we changing the ordinance, and do we then need to?
No, the ordinance is not being changed. I'd just like the
ordinance
minutes
stays
to reflect,
amended.
I would like the minutes to reflect what happened that night in the meeting.
I don't think he said change the word abandoned. I think he objected to it, but we better leave that word in there, whether you like it or not. And the other stuff is not part of it. We'll change the ordinance.
So the specific wording that we're looking for to be included in the minutes is the comments related to the cost for the street per square foot and the cost for the appraisal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You got that, Cindy? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the fact that it was donated free of charge to Tarleton State University to build goodwill in our partnership.
Okay, so then the third thing then would have in the minutes that there was an amendment that incorporated the waiver of the policy to charge for the conveyance.
I just gonna have, abandonment is one thing and conveyance is another thing. It's one or the other, seems to me like, you know. I don't know if those words are important or not, but there's a difference between abandoning something and conveying it. To me, it was conveyed.
Absolutely.
What, that's the land lawyer down there, the title guy.
Well, you abandon it, you walk off, leave it.
How about abandoned and donated?
Well, I don't know if that abandoned has anything to do with it, just donated or conveyed. To me, that's what I thought happened, but anyway, that's all I got to say about it.
Well,
It says we abandoned it.
the ordinance right now is written to say abandoned, correct? So we would have to amend to reconsider this, to change the word. So I'm at the pleasure of the council here, I guess, if they're.
Mayor, wasn't this a pretty time-sensitive issue for Tarleton? I think with going back and, rescinding the action and passing a new resolution might put them in a bind. But I hear, but I do agree with what Mr.
I
McDaniel
don't
said.
think he moved to change the ordinance.
No, I've moved to reflect the minutes show what actually occurred that night.
They've already got a deed, don't they? Well, they've already got the deed.
Okay, so let's just make sure the minutes reflect the third, there's three components to this. There's the cost per square foot, there's the appraisal, and then there's the amendment to include the waiver of the policy for a fee.
Well, I went out to the CAD and checked the value. And the system that the city had always used showed the value of that street at $18,400. I called D. White about the cost of appraisals, and he said he and Kyle Everett do a lot of appraisals for the city. I mean, Tarleton and A&M. And he said about $350 a piece. So what we were told was $3,000 on the appraisal cost, $4,000 on the value of the street. The real figure is $700 versus the $3,000 on appraisal cost, and $4,000 versus $18,400. Now, we passed that ordinance based on the information furnished by the city administrator, which pretty obviously was way off. I am all in favor of Tarleton having a street. No objection to that. But is there any way, and this is for the city attorney, I guess, can we revisit that giveaway thing, or? I mean,
Asking me?
Yeah,
No,
we're
sir.
talking.
That was done.
Well, we're talking about $18,000 here. And I guess second question is, Mark, where did you get your figures?
All of that was in the discussion with the A&M Real Estate, and I was just repeating what they were providing to me. So
Well, did they tell you it was worth $4,000? You went for it?
The value that was put on it was the value that was put on the last street transaction that we had with them at that time. I did not do the research on it, no, sir.
Well, I asked because, when at that meeting, I said, I bought a street from the city 3 or 4 years ago, and you used the figures that the CAD had, which you agreed that was standard. And using the standard on this, it comes out to $18,400. So, I guess we mark up another goodwill gesture to Tarleton.
Okay, well, I think the point you're making, Mr. Warren, is that and I don't know if you want that reflected somehow, we can do that from the minutes tonight.
I don't really care, but I just wanted to point it out. It's, that was, the three of us had got, or that are new on the council, that was our first meeting, and we voted based on unreliable information. And
That was hurried through, and there may have been a need to hurry it through, but, we had to make a decision based on the information we had. And, that's all I got to say about it.
Okay.
But just for future, if I may, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Just for future, since I didn't realize that, but since Jerry said that he had bought a street, it's possible that we could have made a public sale of that street since the city owned it. That would have been something that we evidently do since we sold a street to Jerry apparently at some time. So that, in other words, that street could have been offered publicly to someone other than Tarleton, since.
Only if they own property on both sides of it.
Only if they own property on both sides of it, okay.
It's the adjoining property
Has
owners.
to be the adjoining,
The
okay.
adjoining property owners.
Are the only ones who can buy a street?
And to sell real estate, as it was mentioned, and we did have some of that training, we can offer it to the adjoining property owners, and if we don't, then we end up having to take bids on it, take sale bids.
That's
on
what
it.
I'm saying. So it could have
So-
also been offered as an open bid street to even a business or something, if we hadn't given it to Tarleton.
If the adjoining property owners chose not.
Chose not to,
Let's
okay.
say, yeah, in essence, kind of had first right of refusal, might be the best way for me
Is
to
that what-
maybe
okay.
sort of layman's terms, I guess. We allow the adjoining property owners to just enlarge their property, in essence, to put it.
Call the question, Mayor?
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor right now to amend the minutes based on the recording to include the cost estimate and appraised estimate and the amendment. Any further discussion? I guess you called the question, so we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, and that approves, and then we've addressed everything on the consent agenda with that. We'll move to comments by the city administrator.
Thank you. I would like to, going back to, or I do have in here on page 101 of your agenda packet, kind of status report, just to let you know that, and I believe last week we did have, I think the mayor actually maybe handed out a kind of a current issues as we're trying to get everybody up to speed on the same page. I have listed each of those down here and tried to give a brief description of kind of where it is, maybe when the original discussion had started on those. Obviously, that's just to again, to continue to try to, in very brief form, try to kind of keep those on the radar, if you want to call it that. The one thing I do want to show is that we have completed the Garfield Water Tower. That contractor is out. I think we're still, I think they're finalizing. I believe we hold the payment for 30 or 45 days. But that project is complete. We're very satisfied with the work. I believe it turned out very nice. And the other thing a couple more things I want to point out, and tonight we've been trying to recognize some of the contributions that have been made and are made. One of the other contributions is made significantly every year, and I really don't even know how many years now, but I want to make a public announcement and public thank you to Doug Montgomery at Techstar Ford. But in particular, we have the summer concert series, and it starts Thursday night. So I want to make that announcement. Michael Martin Murphy will be on stage from 8 to 10, June the 5th, which is this Thursday. And then the other, Ricky Skaggs and the Kentucky Thunder will be here on June the 19th. So I just want to encourage everyone, and again, I can just tell you it's been because of the partnership and because of Doug Montgomery and his commitment to this community, and we very much appreciate that, Doug, and Techstar 4. The last thing is I wanted to point out, and I forwarded to each of you in an email today, I did receive about within the last 2 or 3 weeks, we had a rating call. What is a rating call? In this particular case, Standard & Poor's contacted the finance department. Mr. Wood and myself got on the phone with an agent that they take a look at all of our past financial history, primarily our audits. They do take a look at our current year's budget operations. But specifically, the real thing that I'm just very proud of, and I usually don't report too much on these, but we were recently, or actually as of today with this notification, we were upgraded in our bond rating from an A+ to a AA-. Now, I sent to you the rationale behind their comments, and again, I'd like to, I guess, just we'll forward that and kind of talk about what I'm just most proud of is both. I think this continues to be a reflection of both the council's physical conservative actions, the directors, especially, and the employees, and the way they manage their money, and then most importantly, I guess, is just the continued economic condition of our community. And when you put all those together, that's a very good sign that we got this upgrade. What does it really mean? It means that we're going to get a better interest rate in the future on all of our debt. And that's, once again, is a significant savings for this community and for the taxpayers, and so I'm very proud of it. With that, I'll conclude and be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Kaiser?
I have one quick one, Mayor. Mark, I noticed that in our Code Enforcement Division, Glenn Wilson has retired several weeks ago now, and I was just wondering if there's someone covering his job. I'm seeing a lot of yards and lots out there with tall grass and weeds and piles of limbs, and I'm not seeing any certified letters from the city to them.
We're running short, but we're running after as much as we can. We actually moved one of the building inspectors over to try to help us accommodate a lot of that during this busy time of year. So we're running everybody pretty thin.
Thank you.
All right. Council members' comments, Mr. Hogan.
Believe it or not, I'm at a loss of words. Got nothing. See you Thursday night at the park.
Okay, sounds good. We'll hear you singing Wildfire, right?
No, you don't want to hear me sing. There won't be anybody there.
All right, Mr. Wagner. Any comments?
Well, I think I said about enough, but if there's a deed, is not an abandonment. A deed is a conveyance, it's not an abandonment, so that's all I got to say about that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McDaniel.
I would just like to thank everyone who's sat in the audience for this meeting as well as watched at home. And I appreciate what you do. I should have mentioned it. Also like to single out Shelby Slauson. She is an untiring investigator to get information out to the people of Stephenville and Erath County. And we appreciate what you do and your dedication to getting the truth out on several different issues. So thank you, Shelby.
Mr. Pendleton.
I just had one recommendation I made to you earlier, is that maybe next time we should wait to give awards till the end, so we can keep
Yeah,
a
keep
full
the
house,
audience,
complete,
that's right.
a complete
Yeah.
audience. But thanks for all coming tonight.
Yeah, I'll let you tell this 3-year-old that was
With all the
down
kids
there.
that stayed till
Yeah.
8 o'clock? Okay.
Mr. Nix, just a second. Warren?
I'm good.
Okay.
You woke him up, man.
Yeah, sorry. I'm shocked. I'd go from 1 to 8, and I'll do that every time. No surprises next time. I would like to echo one of the things that Mark said about the thank you to Doug Montgomery and the Techstar sponsorship of that. That is something that we as a community are able to come together during the summer and celebrate, and it is a very special and unique way for us to not only Birdsong Theater, but our park system as well. And also know that we've got a couple of other things that are going on this week that are very noteworthy. Speaking of economic development, we're getting a new emergency room addition at the hospital, and that will take place on Thursday. I think it's at 10 o'clock, and encourage everybody to come out and see that. I mean, for us to be able to retain quality health services here in Stephenville is really important, and I just want to congratulate Chris Liu and his staff and the hard work they did competing within the Texas health system to get that done here in our community. So that is a big deal for us. And then also, Ranger College is getting awarded another grant from the Texas Workforce Commission on Thursday as well, which is them providing training to companies here in Stephenville and Erath County. It's a partnership, and that's another economic boost for us to be able to get into that system. And they're doing a great job of gathering what's over $2 million total now for our community and training. So that's great. And then on Friday, Friday is the 70th anniversary of D-Day, and there's going to be a concert out at the Community Life Center, and just encourage folks to go out there, patriotic music and celebrating God and country. So that's on Friday.
What time, man?
It starts at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
And thank you for and it's they've got a professional recording artist that's going to be out there, and so it should be really good. And I also want to thank all of you for being here tonight, and we're going to conclude tonight with a brief orientation for our city attorney to talk about a couple of topics.
Thank you, Mayor, that sounds good to
Brief,
me.
yeah, so
Okay.
let me just introduce you again. A brief.
No, I understood you the first time, and I had already planned on that, Mayor,
Yeah,
so.
you're artful at that, so.
Yes,
What's
sir.
the definition of a brief around here, though?
Yeah.
I'm
so there you
concerned
go.
about.
We, you'll have no problem with that, and I see we've taken a little time. I've been asked to touch on several things, many of which I think that y'all went through in your orientation. But I'll give you my take on some of these things, and then if you have questions, you can ask them tonight, or if you prefer, write them down and give them to me. And if I can't answer them, if you ask me tonight, I can't answer them, we'll come back with the answer. I have a number of things here, and I told Mark that I didn't get to a couple of them anyway, so you'll be glad of that. And we may have to carry them over to the next meeting, and we can also, any other questions you have on things I touched tonight, we can do that also. First of all is open meetings. I know you had a presentation on that, and I tried to get down here to watch it because usually the TML does a real good job with what they do on the explanation of open meetings. But really, when we talk about open meetings, we talk about the Open Meetings Act. And when you have a governmental body such as the City Council, you are required to post those meetings, post notice of those meetings like we do, if you have a quorum of members meeting. In this case, we have 9 members of the City Council, and so if we're going to have a meeting that includes 5 or more, which every time it's nearly 9, those have to be posted. The there are, and what you're really interested in, I think, are probably the exceptions to the open meetings law. The big one, the big exception are the times that we have an executive session or a closed session. We've got one of those tonight where we're going to discuss a number of lawsuits that we've got and some other matters that we have. And there are certain matters that you can consider in closed meeting. The first one I'll talk about is consultation with attorney. The law provides that you can talk with your attorney about pending or contemplated litigation, which we're going to do tonight, and any kind of settlement offers that we might have on any kind of a litigation matter that we might have. I think it'll make sense to you why we can have a closed meeting. If we had open meetings and we have antagonistic people against us and we have a lawsuit going on, we naturally want to talk about that in private. We may discuss our defensive posture, our offensive posture, our tactics, settlement offers, and a number of things like that that we wouldn't want to get back to the other side that's against us. So I think that'll make sense to you, and that's the main reason why we have that exception. Now, the next one also has to do with your attorney. It's called deliberation regarding real property. Normally, your attorney's going to be talking to you about that. And I'll just read to you, we can close the meeting to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of property if deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the city in negotiations with a third person. So if we're negotiating a contract and we want to keep those things private like a private citizen would do, we go into executive session and we talk about those things, and that should make some sense to you too, because as it says, our negotiating power would be diminished. I think there was a question by someone about annexation and whether or not annexation matters could be held in executive session. I looked at that, and in my opinion, it does not meet that definition that I just read to you, and so it's my opinion that we don't talk about annexation in a closed session. Again, all of these things are, the open meetings laws are, what's the politically correct word now? Transparency. That's what we're talking about. Ever since I've been practicing law, and certainly since I've been city attorney, the move has been to be more open. I think it's easy for a council or a body to want to get together and talk about things where they can talk freely, maybe where they can talk about people or things that are going on in the city. But the move has been on, and the legislature has passed laws discouraging that. And again, sometimes it's quite inconvenient, I think, for a group, especially this size, to not be able to get together and discuss things in private when they'd like to. But I also think that you can see, and I think this council especially, is interested in the public knowing what's going on. So you've got a trade-off there. You want to talk about things, and you want to be able to talk about things frankly, but you have to limit the way you do that where private citizens don't necessarily have to do it. Now, one of the things I think I was also asked about, I think the mayor brought this up, about whether one or two people can discuss items that are before the council. My answer to that is 4 of you can, but not 5. If you do that, that is a council meeting. It's a violation of law, and there's some pretty strict penalties. I didn't write them down, but there's some money penalties, and I kind of think it's a Class B misdemeanor, but I'd have to go back and look at it. Maybe you already knew that, maybe you'd already figured that out, but there's not, I mean, if you get on the telephone and talk to each other about a matter here and there, and I know you do, that's natural to do that. I don't know how you would get things done without doing that. Just need to be careful about the numbers and remember that we need to comply with this Open Meetings Act. Also a question about, it has come up in the past where you find yourself at a gathering of some sort, and let's say there's 6 of you there at a Bosque River Trail matter. And you look around there and you say, uh-oh, we've got a quorum here, we've got to watch what we're doing. The key to that is deliberation. The word that is the key there is deliberation. You don't talk about city business, you don't deliberate about city business, and you're okay. So you don't have to limit where you go. Now, we have, a long time ago, it's been since I've been city attorney, but I've been city attorney a long time. We made up our mind. We used to have a different committee system set up. And it got, y'all meet now in committees, and I think, although I don't make a whole lot of them, you meet and all of you come. That wasn't so back in the day. We had committees of 3 or 4 people, I think, that met, but it got where everybody was coming. That may be when we changed it. I don't, forgive me for not knowing. But just sometime along the line there, we just said, to heck with it, let's just post them all. And so we do. We post all the committee meetings, and that way we're safe about what we do. I got off track here just a little bit. The next exception to the open meetings law is personnel matters. If you're discussing the hiring and firing, the evaluation, or anything about a individual employee, named individual employee, then you can have that discussion in closed session. We had that question come up sometime, I think, with Doug Savine. The council sets who attends closed meetings. You say who can be in there. That includes me and Mark, and Cindy, and everybody else. You say, now we normally attend in there. You normally want us in there, but you say who can come in there. If you're talking about a particular employee, then they have the right to either come in there, or if you don't let them come in there, they have the right to open the meeting, and you have to come in and have any deliberations against them or about them in public. So that's a little bit of a different twist there. One thing that's, and there's about 5 or 6 other exceptions. I made a copy of them, and I can go over all of them if you want me to, but really those are the ones, the exceptions that we normally see. If there's ever a question about any of these others, we just go to the books and look at it and be sure that we're complying with the open meetings law. You never will err by meeting in here in front of the public. Never. You just need to be careful about how you close and when you close the meetings. One thing I wanted to mention that has come up in the last, well, it's probably been come up in the last 20 years, but it doesn't seem like that long, is phone and internet use. Now you can have calls among several people, and I know that you email each other from time to time. In fact, I get some of them from time to time. Be real careful about those things, because if you're emailing or talking to somebody on a line with several people on there, that quorum rule applies. So be careful about it. That's coming into play more all the time. I hear it in court some, okay? That's really where it has been brought to my attention. Not with governmental bodies, but I hear about, and y'all know how technology has taken over just about everything. So be careful about how you use the internet and the phone. I believe that covers what I wanted to say about open meetings. That's fairly fast. Yeah. Let me go on here. I've been asked for about 2 or 3 more things, and they won't take near as long. The Public Information Act, I always call that the Open Records Act. It's fairly simple. People come, I imagine, daily to City Hall, or a lot. asking for certain types of information. Now, we've taken care of a lot of that, I think, by posting that on the internet on our, and so people don't, I take it that they probably don't come as often as they used to. They still come in and request records, and I'm gonna guess, Cindy, that most records, you just determine, or somebody determines they're open records and the public gets them. On occasion, they'll bring those, and I think those requests come to you, don't they?
Yes.
And she'll look at it, and if she has a question about that and can't answer it with me or TML or whatever source she has, then we will request the requester to put their request in writing, and we submit that to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General then makes a determination about that. And there are certain time limits that they have to make that, certain time limits that the city has to meet by getting it off to the AG, and it's fairly quick. I doubt that we have 2 or 3 of those a year that go to the AG. May not have, I think we might have 3 or 4 in 1 year, none the next. But at any rate, the same rules about public information apply, the same rules of open meetings apply to public records. We want to be open, and these records are the people's. There are exceptions to that I need to also cover. One is law enforcement. There are sensitive law enforcement things that are not available to the public. That probably makes sense to you. I'm all the time dealing with the police when they tell me that this is subject to a criminal investigation, and boom, it's not public anymore. In that case, after that case has been dealt with, it becomes a public record. But while it's ongoing, it's not available. There are some other exceptions. Communications with your attorney are generally not available to the public. I think I've covered that. We've already talked about the executive session. Somebody had asked the question about council staff communication. I had it on my list here, and I can just briefly tell you what I think about that. It's my opinion that it's not illegal for a council member to talk to the administration or the staff, individual member. I don't know how advisable it is, and the reason I say that is because if you start going to individual employees and you get one story, and then have another council member go somewhere else, I guess what I'm saying is we're better off, I think, and now this is not a legal opinion, this is just me watching what has gone on over the years. I think you're better off to channel it into your city administrator somewhere, so you all can know what's being said and asked. Now, that doesn't mean you can't talk to, I know ever since I've been city attorney, individual councilmen have talked to staff and different department heads. But I think you see the wisdom, I hope you see the wisdom of limiting that some and channeling it so all of you can know what's being said. One other thing that the mayor had brought up and wanted me to address is public prayer. I think it's been legal for a long time. We had some verification of that from the Supreme Court the other day, and if that's what the council wants to do, I think you can do it. Now, I have also been asked to talk about conflict of interest and parliamentary procedures, and I had meant to get that done tonight. Maybe you're happy that I'm not ready to do that. So we'll do it when y'all want to. If you want to do it next time, I'll be ready then. If you have any questions about these other things that I have touched on, I'll be glad to answer those too. It's always good for you to give me a little time. If you've got a question about some of these things, if you write them down and give them to me, let me have a little time to think about them, you'll get a better answer. So that's my spiel tonight, and I hope it didn't take too long.
Okay, question?
Yeah, I want to ask one question about talking to employees. A few months ago, I wanted to see what that rec center gym looked like. Never had been in it. I walked in there and said, "Can I look?" And she said, "Yeah, you can look." And I looked and left, and I got fussed at for doing it. Now, I can go into public building, can I, whether I'm a counselor or not, and say, can I look at this gym?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Without any question.
all right. That's fine.
Other questions for Randy?
I made the mistake, I guess, of starting to write a little show and tell thing in the paper. And I get a lot of information that way, you know, people call, text, and so forth. I'm good with anything that's done in open session, reporting on that and commenting on it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue it on a once-a-month basis.
No, I
And,
don't think
just
there's
to
any
get
problem with
input.
that. If it's been in open session, yes, that's fine.
The other thing, California Chrome, will he win the Triple Crown Saturday?
I don't have any money, but if I did, I'd bet it on it. He looks pretty good.
Looking pretty good.
It's all
Thank you.
dependent on his sinuses.
Yeah, he has a patch, doesn't he?
That's right. All right, any other questions for Randy?
One other thing.
Okay.
Open meetings pamphlet, open records pamphlet. Cindy can get you those, I think. She's having to get me new ones because I think these are both outdated. The information doesn't change a whole lot, so the information's still the same in here, but she'll get you these. You probably, don't get them if you don't want them, but they're real good books. They're by the AG, and so they're available.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that presentation, and you know, something you said there, Randy, that I think is really important for us as a council to understand. It is sometimes more comfortable to, when you're not certain about something, to try to talk to, you know, a smaller group about what it is that is going on. But we represent the people, all the people, and so we should, as a council, feel comfortable about discussing things in here so that we all hear and all understand what those issues are. And I think that's something that I want to continue to encourage us to do. I think it's healthy for us to understand the issue. That does require some more work on our part to come prepared so that we can ask questions and have answers, and a lot of that work will go into our committee efforts, I think, leading into our meetings, and so that's great. The second thing I want to ask is, and I don't want to belabor this point, but I'd like to get a written brief from you on your opinion about prayer, so that I have that in writing.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Okay, and
He's in favor of it.
so with that, I will call us into executive session in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Law, consultation with attorney, and deliberations about real property. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry.
Sorry. Get away on it, hitting you.
How you doing?